to exist. I admit I might get a tad bit pissed. All the slaughter in the world and you can't do ish. Now my daughter's in the world, there's a brand new twist. I got high power tools in my shed to summarily separate fools from their head. Some think I drop 35 jewels every week. Others know I heavily influence rules that I speak. Rule number one is unpopular with those that don't possess the binoculars to see. It has less to do with me than humanity being free collectively. To all act as individuals and not be dependent upon residuals of elites within.
Welcome to the long-awaited Cold Reality Radio here on the UCY.TV Broadcasting Network, which is still a thing. It's still running. It is not live, but uploadable thanks to Jules. And it's been a while. It's been probably about a year. So I figured it would be about time to actually do something. So many things happening. Insanity multiplied by 100 since this time last year. And it's disturbing, to say the least. Absolutely disturbing, to say the least. The path to war is pretty evident. Trade wars turn into real wars. What's that going to look like? The Bolton, the neocon maniac, talking about sending 120,000 troops to the Middle East. We also have a false flag event, I'm pretty sure, that has already taken place, that will / possibly be used as a Gulf of Tonkin style lead up. So let's see what's happening out there today. Culture War 2020 over here at Drudge. Over here at the Drudge Report. Of course, many states, Alabama governor signs abortion ban. I always said, I always thought that, obviously a woman's got a right to choose, do whatever that she needs to do for herself, for her life. What's not understood is that there are external factors out there that socially engineer women into making decisions, socially engineer them into thinking that someone's going to steal their reproductive rights away or steal their anything away from them. Obviously, it's been over the years turned into a political nightmare and used to further divide and conquer the masses. And then, of course, we get to a point where abortion bans are being signed because, and I saw a documentary a little while ago, and it was called, I think it was like 2800 Lancaster or something. Let me see. The heck was his name? Well, it was a documentary that is on Netflix, and it is about a Philadelphia abortion clinic that was ultimately shut down within the last 3 or 4 years. Let me see. Netflix abortion documentary. Right. His name was Gosnell. There was a movie that was made about it too. Gosnell documentary. The trial of America's biggest serial killer. And maybe I'll play a little bit of this. Let's see here. No, that'll be too long. 3801lancaster.com. Let's see if we can. And we'll see, and we can see where this, the legislation over the years has moved us to. We'll watch the trailer, but it was very disturbing. And again, why I'm bringing this up because we're in the news boom, or we're talking about culture wars, we're talking about abortion bills being signed, and what happens when we get to the point where we just allow things to, and I don't want to say allow a woman to be able to make the choice to do whatever she wants to do. But let me roll with this, see what we got.
This next story comes with a strong word of caution. The details are gruesome. You won't want young children to watch.
I don't know where he went wrong.
He's somebody who has an uncanny ability to almost enchant people.
You have to be crazy in order to do these things to babies.
This case is almost unprecedented.
Last February, district attorneys, detectives, and other law enforcement agents served a search warrant on the medical office of Dr. Kermit Gosnell.
I was not prepared to see what I saw in that clinic.
Blood-stained walls, blood-stained beds.
This place was a pest hole. You wouldn't take your dog or your cat there.
We open up the cabinet and we see 5 jars of feet. This was different than any job we've ever handled.
I'm just so shocked at all the things that they're saying about him.
Kermit Gosnell remains a mystery.
He was happy. He always had a joke. Friendly, very kind, giving.
What happened to him that changed him from a legitimate doctor in West Philadelphia to the symbol of evil?
Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from
Kermit Gosnell. I very strongly believe in my innocence, and there are many people who believe that.
Over a period of 2 decades, government health and licensing officials were repeatedly confronted with evidence about Gosnell and repeatedly chose to do nothing.
They didn't subpoena people. They didn't subpoena records. They didn't ask to go into Gosnell's clinic.
They just let it fester and fester and fester, and people have died. There was no reason they should not have been in that clinic shutting it down.
The story just doesn't make sense. People are coming to you for 40 years. How could you be this terrible person?
I went to him because as a child I was taught doctors were people that you could trust. You can't even trust them anymore.
We've allowed a man to butcher babies, butcher women, and nobody did a damn thing about it.
George Bernard Shaw said that practical man changes to live within his society. Impractical man has the priority of changing his society to meet its own needs. Therefore, progress can only be accomplished by an impractical man.
Would you describe yourself as an impractical man?
No question. No question.
All right, so 3801 Lancaster, American tragedy. And this happened in the city of Philadelphia, West Philadelphia. I want to say northwest, more towards West Philadelphia. I'm familiar with the area because of, living in this area for many years. And when you watch this documentary and you listen to this man speak and you hear all the things that his family and neighbors said about him being this very, very nice, interactive person where he could you liked him. You liked him. You liked being around him. You liked having a conversation with him. He was very well spoken. You heard his voice there. And as he was being interviewed by someone over the phone. And what was happening there was for years and years and years, the clinic, even after people had complained, even after people had died, the state of Pennsylvania or Harrisburg did absolutely nothing. They did next to nothing. And the only reason that it escalated to the point where police went in there into this 3-story building was because drugs were thought to have been involved in what was going on there. So because the drug war, which largely, if you know anything about the drug war, it has been used as a tool to move people into the prison industrial complex, to fill prisons, sometimes empty prisons, to then be able to get people on these drugs, catch them with drugs that were most likely shipped in by intelligence agencies, to then again fill these prisons. Okay, and if you get a chance, watch this documentary. And I'm not saying this because I'm pro-life or I'm saying this because I'm anti-abortion. I'm saying this because how do we get to this point in society? How do we get to the point where what Gosnell thought ultimately was his mission, to be able to kill these children, sometimes 4, 5, even 6 months into pregnancy. And one of his excuses, and I don't even know if he thought it was an excuse, he was just explaining that. He said, I see the way society is. I see what's happening in society. And these children, he felt as though, and I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember exactly word for word what he said, was that he was doing this because eventually he was absolutely sure that these children would end up on the wrong side of the tracks. They would end up in prison. They would end up on drugs. They would end up. And then when you think of it, I'm not condoning anything that the man did at all. I mean, people are calling him, as far as body count, like one of the biggest serial killers. And this was legislatively fucking condoned. Harrisburg never went there. It was years in between visits that would either verify, validate a facility like that to be able to stay open and or close it down. And so you will see in there how nothing was done. There were women, a couple women that died from sepsis, from different things. The police that went in there into the clinic because of drugs, not because women or babies were being, what happened in there. They couldn't believe what they saw. They were like unbelievable. Like who would come here? I mean, all you would have to do, I would imagine, as a female, calculating in the event that's taking place in their life, their crossroads that they're at. What do I do? What don't I do? And going in there, it'd be like, you could see it and be like, oh my God, this place is filthy. But, then one of the young women on there was so damaged by the procedure that she was going forward unable to have children. And so we get into this place and time where something like this happens, and there's more of these clinics. At the end of the documentary, there was one in Delaware, a Planned Parenthood in Delaware that was under suspicion, and then somebody ratted someone out after they had heard. But I mean, I remember I would listen to Philadelphia news and, back then, I don't know. I don't remember hearing too much about it. I don't remember people talking about it. Because largely, this has already been pretty much discovered that news is filtered. News gets filtered out to you, especially in America, where we live in a bubble. News from outside this bubble doesn't get in. And then people police each other. They police themselves to levels of apathy that are just incredible. And I always say, your silence is your consent. Most people don't even Most people don't even see what they're participating in every day. They don't see what they're doing and how they're participating in a system that it's corrupt no matter who gets in there. Whether it's Trump, whether it was Hillary. And it all comes down to power, powerful people putting their family members in power. And so if you get a chance, check out the documentary, 3801 Lancaster. There's a lot of stuff in there, a lot of information. Let me see, what is this? So, right, so Missouri Senate passes, Louisiana next, more states coming. And so what is the outcome? I'm sure that Donald Trump's going to get blamed for whatever. So the Russiagate investigation going on for perpetually, it seems, since he took office, and then we get him being absolved from, which was always the case. Which honestly I believe was always the case, because Mueller is a criminal lawyer. He is a lawyer that protects evil. And I'm not saying that Donald Trump is evil, because if you know what Mueller's been involved in the past, then you absolutely know, or would surmise, that he would not even qualify to be at the helm of this investigation, because he is a bag of shit. He's a bag of shit. And so now it's not enough, obviously, over the last month, 6 weeks since the Mueller report came out. It's not enough, really isn't enough, because it's just a constant, we're going to attack Mueller now. Where we were supporting him. We know what he's going to find it. He's going to be our hero. He's going to find the collusion. He's going to find. And then nothing. And then the mentally ill party. And we live in a one-party system, okay? It's just that some know how to control themselves a little bit better, but they're scumbags too. The Mitch O'Connells and those on the right with blood on their hands. And America is a lie. America is an absolute lie. It is family members of very, very powerful families in positions of power living parasitically off of the rest of us. Living parasitically off of the rest of us. But we think that we have a choice. We think that our vote counts. We think this, we think that. We think things that are not true. And it steers our lives and our tax dollars and everything else for the privilege of being a United States citizen, which is largely defined completely and utterly the opposite of what we think that it is. After having many conversations with Clint Richardson, about the straw man. By the way, Clint is currently working on a 5-6 hour documentary, another documentary of and regarding vaccines, injections, inoculations, immunizations. And of course, that's a huge thing going on now. It's huge about this whole measles thing. And if you do the research, you find out that most of the people that have the measles were already vaccinated within the last year of these outbreaks of measles. So they were basically given the measles, but that's another broadcast in and of itself. And of course, while all of these tragedies are going on, you know, Burger King delivers Whoppers to LA drivers stuck in traffic. Taco Bell opens a hotel and resort. What else that's absolutely fucking detrimental and useless? In our decrepit society, our societally engineered system that can add to this worthlessness. What else? Oh, yeah. De Blasio runs for president. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Great. Super. What else? Okay, New Dawn in Cancer War. Cure in 10 years, question mark. Okay, people have already been curing themselves naturally with cannabis in any number of different ways. They've been curing themselves of this disease that modern day medicine can't seem to knock out. Can't knock out the common cold, can't knock out cancer, heart disease, all these different things. But they can give you drugs. They can create poisons and toxins that there's lawsuits in every search, every television station after hours, implanted mesh, any number of different lawsuits, medical lawsuits, where medical devices break and cause death and all kinds of... Like, why would we trust these people? Why? Why would we trust people? Which leads me to a conversation that I heard where someone was basically saying we should not trust this governmental organization. We should not trust them. They've lied to us. They've steered us in the wrong way. They've done this. They've done that. Everything possible. To lose trust, to not convey trust. They've lost this. And then the person that's on the opposite side of the conversation says, basically, like, why do we not trust anyone anymore? This is what the person extracted from what enlightenment that was being, kind of conveyed in his direction. It's scary, it's frightening that we just don't trust anyone anymore. Trust your mother. Trust your family if they're worthy of trusting. If you have a child that lies to you all the time, you would not trust them. If you have a family member that lies to you or has exhibited things that you just won't and shouldn't trust them, you don't trust them. All we have to hear on the state-sponsored news is a scientist from this university. NASA said this the other day about, while they steal incredible sums of money and do next to nothing, absolutely nothing, I was sitting in a meeting the other day where someone said, tell me a job that you can just go in and do absolutely nothing and get paid. And I said, Congress? And that got, snickers and chuckles and giggles. So the biggest concern of this man was that we don't trust anyone anymore. We don't trust authority anymore because they were talking about a government, an organization created by government, a bureaucracy. Why don't we trust anybody anymore? I don't understand. That's frightening. I'm concerned. We're concerned about things that we shouldn't be concerned about. And we're not concerned about things that we should. And one of the reasons why we just trust authority is because we're afraid not to. That's a big one, I think. The fear of not trusting authority because what are they going to do to you? Ric Flair, a wrestler, hospitalized. Now, I don't mean to make a joke of that, but I still know, grown men, some that I respect and some that I absolutely don't, that in their 30s that are go to these wrestling events, and it's unbelievable. It's just really kind of makes me think, what the fuck is wrong with you? But at the risk of being critical, Saudi paper urges strikes on Iran. And of course, they've been bombing and killing men, women, and children in Yemen. Ongoing murder for 2+ years. We don't really hear about it on the news. Every now and then you'll hear someone, Bernie Sanders or someone say something about like, oh my God, I just heard that we are killing people over in the Yemen. And it's like, all right, well, gee, thanks for caring about the situation. Is it going to stop? Or is it just one of those things that lip service is given and then it just disappears? Lip service and then it disappears. Paper says, The Guardian says John Bolton is the most dangerous man in the world. Of course, he worked for the UN. Didn't he go to several inspections and different things? I think he was one of those guys that did a number of inspections. For nuclear related weapons of mass destruction, that type of shit. It's what else we got here? Christ in clouds sparks religious frenzy. Rogue doctor gives hundreds of people HIV with contaminated needle. Bayer, who is now merged with Monsanto. Was it Factor 8? Shipped out all these things, gave a bunch of people HIV, years ago. But then they get to merge with Monsanto, who obviously they're in court now. Now they have to label Roundup saying that it's a carcinogen, that it's cancer causing, which is what it was meant to do from the beginning, from the inception, from its creation. It was meant to get into everything, be completely insidious, get into food, groundwater, soil. It's an absolute toxin. It was created for one fucking reason, and not to fucking kill weeds in your fucking garden. multiple, hundreds and hundreds of lawsuits now. Scary, man. Scary. But as Americans, we just sit back. You hardly ever see these lawsuits, these multiple hundreds and hundreds of lawsuits. The groundskeeper, the black man, who got his day in court over it. But then they still fight. They say, "Oh, there's nothing. No, it's cool, man. It's fine." Monsanto responsible for Agent Orange, for just absolute toxins being proliferated into our environment, hurting, killing people every day. Had a dog that got exposed to it and then died. Which means that the owners were exposed to it as well. To be continued, maybe. Let's see here. And again, this new dawn in cancer war. 10 years. UN chief concern nuclear coffin leaking in the Pacific. Here. Concrete dome built last century to contain waste from atomic bomb test is leaking radioactive material into the Pacific. So that's enough of Drudge. We'll go through some of these stories over here on Blacklisted News. You know, the fake news. By the way, nomorefakenews.com or John Rappaport's blog was shut down. I interviewed him, probably 6 or 7 years ago. And he created nomorefakenews.com. So he knew before this whole fake news thing, and newsflash, news in America has been fake going all the way back to Walter Cronkite, going all the way back to some of the first news broadcasts. Fake. Lies about Vietnam, lies about everything, lies about the American dream, just bullshit. But the news that's fake now is anyone or any news outlet or any citizen journalist. I hate to say citizen, because that's enslavement. Any journalist out there that contradicts the narrative of the state-sponsored media, NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, PBS, all the five corporations that control and create and disseminate bullshit on a daily fucking basis. That's real news. Anyone who contradicts their lies and their fucking global domination is fake news now. So Monsanto kept dossiers on influential people in France and across Europe, previously paid Sir Richard Dahl to alter scientific research. Bayer, or Monsanto, the formerly merged company of potentially two of the most evil businesses in history, is now under fire for keeping a dossier on influential people such as journalists in France, who basically for years have been saying, you are toxic fucking scumbags killing people just by existing. Okay. Journalists in France, and according to Monsanto, they did the same across Europe. Reuters reported. Neocons say Iran positioning missiles against U.S. in Iraq. U.S. increases risk of war on Iran without a path to de-escalation. And that's because Israel wants war, and whoever Israel wants war with, America wants war with. And of course, and I've seen this on RT, commie fake news, top British commander in rare public dispute with U.S. over Iran intelligence. So everything that we've been saying, the Western news has been saying, was completely disputed by this gentleman, Army Major General Christopher Gicca, a deputy head of the U.S.-led coalition, asserted confidently in a video-linked briefing from Baghdad to the Pentagon in response to a CNN question, quote, we are aware of that presence clearly, and we monitor them along with a whole range of others because that's the environment we're in. We're monitoring the Shia militia groups. If I think you're referring to carefully, and if the threat level seems to go up, then we'll raise our force protection measures accordingly. So basically says, no, we're not seeing anything. Now, he didn't say, fuck the Western media. He just said, we're not seeing any of that. And that's out of Zero Hedge. The British commander's words prompted a rare and swift rebuke from the U.S. side hours later into the evening when U.S. Central Command issued its own statement slamming the general and his words as inaccurate, insisting coalition troops in Iraq and Syria were on a high level of alert due to the Iranian, or the so-called Iranian threat. What else we have here? WhatsApp, the app that people communicate with across the world. Malicious spyware has all the markings of government-sponsored surveillance, or what I heard today as surveillance capitalism, ever since, 9/11. And of course, zombie load, new critical flaw, affects most Intel processors, exposes keys, browsing history, and more. Researchers found another security flaw in Intel processor chips that power most of the world's computers. One that can compromise users' private data, and that can be fixed without a major performance drop. The exploit, dubbed zombie load, is embedded in Intel processors' chips themselves, meaning even the best designed software patches can go only part of the way toward plugging the hole without reducing the chip's performance. The vulnerability may allow attackers or governments that have gone rogue or have been pretty much rogue and bullshit and total garbage and, baby killing governments will allow them to resurrect critical data processed by the chip, from browser history and passwords to disk encryption keys and other system level sensitive data. So nothing in technology gets put out there without them creating these holes, these security bypass avenues, if you will, so that they can control their product And so when it says that hackers, that's just a nice way of saying those who wish to capitalize on surveillance. Victory, the Electronics Foundation. What is that? What is that? The Electronic Freedom Foundation wins national security letter transparency lawsuit. Okay. In this construct, this fake reality that has been created for us all to live in, or at least those that accept that we've been pretty much conquered, divided and conquered. We think that these things, you're going to see these little victories. One little victory here, one little victory there, one little victory over here. Okay? But the war is being lost. It's being lost big time. A federal district court in San Francisco has ruled strongly in favor of our Freedom of Information Act lawsuit seeking records of how and when the FBI lifts gag orders issued with national security letters. These records will provide a window into the FBI's use of a highly secretive investigative tool that has been historically misused. They will also provide insight into the effectiveness of the USA Freedom Act, the National Security Reform Law passed by Congress in 2015. Bernie Sanders says when he delivers his online address that we must not go to war with Iran. Well, I applaud Bernie for doing that, saying that. Not that it's going to go very far. And it doesn't really matter what any one of these politicians say. War is money. War it achieves any number of different outcomes. Incredible profit for a small sector of our destructive society. Population control, killing, poisoning, depleted uranium. I mean, this is, we live in a construct where we are participants, willing participants in the murdering and the killing, and not only ourselves, but people in other countries. Children, women. I started watching the Game of Thrones television show, and spoiler alert, one of the characters in the show who was about freeing people from slavery, about everything good. She's going to break the wheel. She's going to become the king of this, the queen of the seven kingdoms through bloodline birthright. And she's going to make the world a better place. Well, in the last episode, as she finally gets to the current queen in the kingdom of the current queen, she decides to kill men, women, and children with dragon fire, which was really disturbing because I didn't think that that was a possibility. How they could take a character that was always about this, but then you saw like totalitarian images of what she had done to people in the past that didn't, bend the knee or all these other things. I guess my point is that we have a situation where, people think that they're doing good, but when push comes to shove, they wind up burning women, children, and innocents to death. So that was a little bit disturbing, to say the least. I'm going to hold this show to about 1 hour. Just it's in the weeds. Herbicide linked to human liver disease. Glyphosate, primary ingredient in Monsanto's popular weed killer, has been linked to liver disease in animal models. In a new study, the first of its kind, researchers at the University of California, San Diego School of Medicine report an association between the herbicide and negative effects on the human liver. So, what else do we got here? Google's still up to its old shit with their banning people, Facebook banning people. Internal documents show the company or corporation 3M hid PFAS dangers for decades. 40,000 dead Venezuelans under U.S. sanctions, and the corporate media turns a blind eye. But Maduro's got to go. Maduro's got to go. Ohio middle school closed after enriched uranium detected inside. WordPress.com takes down John Rappaport's blog. Monsanto compiled dossier on political opponents May 13, 2019. All right. Thanks for hanging out today. There'll be more coming from Cole Reality Radio soon.
I will MK Ultra ya. Put the MK scope on ya. If the MK hits you, it's guaranteed to open ya. The 57mm Mark 110. 220 rounds for me to try to stop them. Don't put that on your wish list. That's retarded babble. Protesters make the hit list soon as they start to rabble. But you're nothing but fishes in the barrel. It doesn't have to be Christmas for a carol. Some decorate with ornamental decorum. Some perform shopping on Hanukkah and Purim. That's where my job come in. I am a blessing to them. Mercenary for the corporation selling weapons to them. Any potential competitor step into them. I'm authorized to knock them out and stick a GPS into them. They want to sell uranium to Iran. That's enriched, that's a bitch. Now we gotta teach a lesson to them. Stick you in the database when you get out.